Star Wars, Young Jedi Knights, Darkest Night, Chapter 11. As mid-morning sunshine drove off the last shreds of the mist that clung to the wishier treetops, 4 muscular Wookiees marched to the transportation control tower of the computer fabrication complex. 4 looked just like any other Wookiees, dressed appropriately for work in the high-tech factory. They were tall and powerful and carried no visible weapons. The newcomers punched in the correct access codes and passed into the high-security tower that rose high above the other tree platforms. Their timing was perfect for the morning shift change. When they crossed the checkpoint station into the control tower, the 4 passed an electronic air filtration grid. The images of the 4 Wookiees flickered in the unscreened discharge for an instant before their appearance restored itself. No one noticed. The real rookies who had been assigned to the next shift lay stunned inside a small supply chamber in an outer storage platform. The Wookiees on duty, weary from hours of monitoring the ships that came in and went from the computer facility, were happy to finish their shift and return home. They signed off their stations and handed over the equipment to the new crew, who gruffly acknowledged them in synthesized Wookiee grunts and growls. The earlier crew departed, leaving the facility's control points, the lockdown systems, and the Kashyyyk satellite defense functions in the hands of the newcomers. One of the new Wookiees sealed the control door tower, pulled out a concealed blaster, then melted the alarm systems and intruder detection devices. Sparks flew, metal and plasteel dripped smoldering black. All 4 Wookiees then touched their waist, switching off the hidden holographic generators belted there. Their images shimmered, dissolving away to reveal a commando team from the Shadow Academy. "The hollow disguises work perfectly," Zeke said, brushing at his leather armor and straightening his crimson-lined cape, happy to be himself again. The stormtrooper stationed at the door said, "Alarm systems disengaged. No problems here." The other 2 infiltrators, the Night Sisters Timothy Kai and Vonda Ra, stood before the complex computer systems. The Wookiee-level panels forced them to reach up to use the controls. Vonda Ra craned her neck to examine the readouts and identify systems. Timothy Kai brooded, mulling over various details. She clasped her long-nailed hands together. "This plan must proceed according to schedule," she said. "If it does, it looks as if the success will be ours." "We will succeed," Zeke said confidently. "I won't disappoint Master Brackus." Vonda Ra worked at 2 of the control panels, studying keyboards and diagnostics. Satisfied, the Night Sister slipped on an insulated vibroblade from her belt sheath and flicked on the humming knife. She bent down over the panels and slashed sideways to sever the power cords. Bright sparks spat out, following a curling white electrical smoke. She backed away, covering her nose against the acrid smell, and then stood up straight again, looking satisfied. "Kashyyyk's orbital defense systems have been permanently disabled." Zeke nodded at the destroyed control panel, his green eyes flashing. "Sure looks permanent to me." "You're in command of this mission, Zeke," Timothy Kai said, plunging a handheld translator into the communications console. "Don't you think it's time you transmitted your signal to lure the Jedi brats here so we can take care of them?" The Night Sister looked insufferably pleased with herself. Zeke swallowed, his mind whirling. He had known this moment would come, and he had to face it. "Do I sense hesitation?" Timothy Kai snapped. "No," he answered, "just working out the proper wording for the message. They must be intrigued and concerned and convinced." Zeke hovered over the communications console, pondering his words, and punched them into a translator that would convert them to the appropriate Wookiee dialect, and a text message with the highest priority to where Jason and Jaina were staying with their friends. If he worded it correctly, he knew the twins would come. Back in the Wookiee home, high in the trees, Jason did his best to keep up with his friends in a fast-paced computer skill game. But the other players, Lowy, Seer, and Tenelkoff, far outmatched his reflexes. Jaina, meanwhile, had gone with Chewbacca to work on their damaged ship. The friends sat at the 4 sides of a rectangular control grid, each with one hand on the small, flexible motion sensors that guided tiny laser-projected simulations of space fighters. They fought a miniature reenactment of the original Death Star battle. Lowy and Sierra flew fast X-Wing fighters, while Jason and Tenelka were stuck with flanking defensive ships, sluggish and old Y-Wings. The computer did its best to pursue them all. Its simulated TIE fighters fired repeatedly, while enormous turbolaser cannons emplaced in a Death Star trench crisscrossed the space with deadly fire lines. Jason was good at target shooting. He and Jaina had often used the Millennium Falcon's quad laser cannons to blast chunks of space debris out of Coruscant orbit, but Lowy and his sister were more intimately familiar with complex computer games, and Tenel Ka had finally honed reflexes of a warrior from Dathomir. Jason's fingers flew across his motion sensor, banking his Y-wing, but a TIE fighter clung close to his rear engine pods. Jason spun about. "Hey, get off my back!" he cried. By sheer luck, the TIE fighter crossed into one of the turbo-laser blasts from the trench guns, conveniently saving Jason. Anxious to divert attention from his so-called performance in the game, Jason tried to distract the other players in the most obvious way. Between spins and banks and firing, he told a joke. "Hey guys, how do you know what sound whippets make when they kiss?" "I've never seen nor heard a whippet's kiss," Tenel Ka said. "Master Lobaka says he's certain he would never wish to," EMTD said. "Come on," Jason interrupted. "It's a joke. What sound do whippets make when they kiss?" He paused a second, cocking an eyebrow. "Ouch!" Tenel Ka looked perplexed, and then Lowy groaned, but Sierra endeared herself forever to Jason by chuffing uproariously at the joke. Then, after only a moment, Sierra sent her holographic fighter ahead of his with redoubled effort. Little green laces of laser fire shot toward him, but he managed to roll his Y-wing and avoid getting himself blasted. Little green laces of laser fire shot toward him, but he managed to roll his Y-wing and avoid getting himself blasted. Another Imperial ship clung to his tail, scoring hits and causing increasing damage as it came inexorably closer. The pesky TIE fighter erupted in a tiny puff as an explosion of spangles of computer and image debris as Tenel Ka brought her Y-wing fighter to the rescue. "It appeared you needed some help, Jason," she said. "I did, thanks." He and Tenel Ka flew side by side as they followed close behind the streaking X-Wings piloted by Lowy and Sierra. Their target approached, a small thermo exhaust port just waiting for them to drop a proton torpedo inside so they could blow up the horrendous superweapon Grand Moff Tarkin had built, and the comm system chimed with a high-priority signal. Sierra reached out to pause the game, freezing the fighter craft in images in position over the grid. Lowy hurried to receive the message, already blinking his golden eyes at the sudden emergency announcement that appeared on his screen. Jason and Tenel Ka went over to look as Lowy bellowed in alarm. "Master Lobaka, what is it? Let me see," EMTD said. "How can you expect me to translate if you don't let me read the text?" Lowy punched a button so Jason and Tenel Ka could see the message. The comm system translated the words on the screen back to basic. "Just a fragment," Jason said, his blood growing cold. "Something interrupted the transmission." "It appears serious," Tenel Ka said. Jason read, "Emergency. Injured at computer fabrication facility. Need your help. Please come right away. He frowned, his heart started to pound. "But who sent it? Who could it be from?" "It was sent specifically to here, to this house," Tenel Ka said. "Someone must have wished us to contact us directly. But only Jaina and Choey know we're here," he said. "And they went off on one of the repair docks to work on the Shadow Chaser, not the computer fabrication facility." "Perhaps they changed their plans," Tenel Ka said. Sierra yowled, and Lowy added his own roar. "Oh my!" EMTD said. "Master Lobaka and Mr. Sears' parents are at the facility." "We cannot ignore this problem," Tenel Ka said. "We must go now and confront it. This is a fact." "You're right about that," Jason said. Lowy punched some buttons on the comm system controls a few times, then pounded the apparatus in frustration. "Master Lobaka says he is unable to reply to the message," the translating droid said. Something appears to be wrong with communications at the facility itself. We've been completely cut off from the outside transmissions." Lowy roared for his sister to summon the fastest bantha mount in the area, while he, Jason, and Tenel Ka fastened lightsabers to their belts, ready for the worst. The four of them rushed out the door of the tree dwelling. A shaggy bantha lumbered to their platform in response to Sierra's frantic call. The Sullustan crouching on the beast's neck appeared deeply weary, ready to go off shift, but when the two young Wookiees bared their teeth and roared that this was an emergency, the mousy alien perked up instantly. Jason clambered aboard and reached down, offering his hand to help Tenel Ka up. She took the aid without complaint. Sierra and Lowy leaped onto the beast of burden's back, and the bantha plodded off. "This thing can go faster," Jason cried. "I've seen them stampeding once on Tatooine." Lowy barked in order, and the Sullustan urged the creature to greater speed until its pounding feet vibrated the entire wooden walkway. High in orbit over Kashyyyk, Defensive satellites bristled with weapons, designed to target on invading enemy forces. But the satellites remained silent and motionless as a disguised shuttle drifted into place, opening its hangar bay doors so that a squadron of TIE fighters could drop out. Weapons powered up, the Imperial fighters ignited their twin-ion engines, and with a loud roar that streaked toward the thick force below, they flew in tight formation. The general battle plan had already been input into their computers. The Imperials intended to strike swiftly, surgically, causing the greatest damage possible in as little time as necessary. They needed to grab their prize, then vanish into space. Kashyyyk's defensive satellites picked up on the enemy on their sensors and transmitted an urgent report, a call for action to the control tower in the computer fabrication facility. The sensors continued to track the enemy's flight path, but they received no arming instructions or attack confirmation from the control tower. The planet remained silent. The satellites did not fire. Although the satellites' weapons were inactive, their sensors continued to file data from the impending attack for future reference if anyone on Kashyyyk survived the Imperial assault. When the weary Bantha finally arrived at the fabrication facility, Lois, Sierra, Tenel Ka, and Jason leapt off its back and rushed to the entrance. The tall, spindly tour droid stood waiting. Seeing new visitors, it unplugged itself from the recharge port and assumed a security posture, since no guests were expected at the moment. "Halt!" it said. "Where's the emergency? We've got to get inside," Jason shouted. "We're responding to a distress call," Tenel Ka said. Lois and Sierra both roared an explanation, believing that the tour droid might respond better in Wookiee than to Basic. "No emergency has been reported," the tour droid said, its arms dangling from his shoulders like metal rods. "There must be," Jason said. "We received a high-priority transmission call telling us to come immediately." "Accessing," the tour droid said as it plugged one of its towel-shaped fingers into its computer port. It paused a moment as a blur of characters streamed across the screen. "Are you certain you have the right coordinates? Could I offer you some promotional brochures?" Aha, Tenel Ka looked gravely towards Jason. "Perhaps we have been tricked." "Blaster bolts," Jason said. Hearing a roaring sound from the sky high above, he pointed frantically to the sky. "It looks like that's about to be an emergency." Loy tilted his head back and exposed his long fangs, howling in rage. A wave of Imperial TIE fighters dropped out of the clouds, arrowing straight for the computer fabrication facility, their weapons blazing even before they arrived.